chastity, one of my favorite viewpoints on chastity was given to us by Pope John Paul II. And he said, chastity can only be thought of in association with the virtue of love. You can't understand chastity unless you understand love. Otherwise, it looks like repression or prudishness. What chastity is a virtue, like courage or honesty, that applies to your sexuality. And it means that you have the strength to use your gift of sex according to God's designs. So I'm a married man. I need to practice chastity with my wife. Honestly, in marriage, people think abstinence ends in marriage. It doesn't. You know, abstinence must happen within marriage, whether for health reasons, or she's tired, or she's sick, or you're traveling, or this. You need to know how to be abstinent within marriage. And people don't even think about that. They think, well, once you get married, you know, it's just whatever you want, whenever you want. No, no, no. You know, and I think for me, one of the best preparations for sexuality within marriage was 27 years of abstinence prior to marriage. Because I learned, hey, I can express love to women without implying something sexual constantly. And so I think it develops our abilities to love. And the world doesn't get it at all. Chastity confuses the world just beyond recognition. I mean, the whole concept, why would you wait? I mean, it's right there. Why not just take it? It's like we have a gluttonous culture when it comes to pleasure. And when my wife and I were engaged, we got a phone call from the BBC, and they wanted to do a documentary on our engagement because they thought it was so bizarre. You know, as a couple, they're engaged, they're still not having sex. And the show that we were on was called Anna in Wonderland. And what this was is a show where a woman from England goes around the world visiting bizarre cultures. And our show was on this bizarre culture of a couple not having sex, and they're going to get married soon. And at the end of the show, because they didn't show us any of the edits or the cuts, they filmed us for like a day and a half, just hours and hours and hours. And then they just used 20 minutes of the actual footage and pasting it as they wanted. And the best thing that I think sums up their attitude is at the end of the show, it said, well, thank you for joining us this week. Next week, join Anna in Wonderland as she visits a colony of vampires. What? That's where we're at. Chastity, vampires. Potato, potato. You know, and so that is how bizarre the world looks upon chastity. And so what we need to do, as John Paul II said, we need to rehabilitate chastity. We've got to show the people, not necessarily just with our words, but with our actions. This stuff works. You know, this is liberating. You know, I think the best argument for chastity is a young couple practicing it. Because then the people see, hey, even when they broke up, they stayed friends. You know, when they were together, there wasn't the drama, the pregnancy test, the hiding, the fears, the diseases. There was just peace. And so that, I think, is the most eloquent example of chastity, is just to live it ourselves.
So you had mentioned the point about how chastity is good practice for sexuality within marriage, but some people are saying exactly the opposite. They're saying you got to try out a bike before you buy it.
Well, there's so many things that could be said to that. One, a bike is a thing. You know, a bike is something you try. You know, a bike is something you return when you're done with it. Are any of those things applied to a woman? No. Do you give yourself completely to a bike? No, you don't. You use a bike. Do you use a woman? If you do, it's called lust. And your marriage is going to be over as soon as it started. What if you're not sexually compatible? Would you love her less? If so, you never loved her to begin with. And so we've got to step back. And people would say to me, that my wife and I got to be on the Donahue show when we were engaged. And a caller called in. And he said, I just have a comment for that couple there who's abstaining from marriage. And he said, you know, I just think that they're kind of naive, that they're going to get married and know what they're supposed to do. I mean, how's it going to perform? You know, and we laughed. Because, I mean, perform. You know, I mean, I'm not going to have Simon and Paula Abdul on my honeymoon, you know, saying I give them 4.25 stars, you know, or Simon will say, oh, this miserable performance. You know, no. This is not a performance. This is a gift of self. I'm not performing for anybody. I'm giving myself to you. And chastity teaches you to give yourself to another in a sacrificial way. And that is the essence of marriage. My wife and I have the rest of our lives to figure out how to please each other in a romantic, loving way when it comes to our sexuality. And so to think that if I just learn enough techniques, I'll be a better gift to you, that's like saying if I chew on a piece of gum before I give it to you, you're going to be more impressed because the gift is so experienced. You know, you're like, nope, fresh piece, please, thank you. You know, and it doesn't mean if we've lost our virginity that all is lost and we have less value. Absolutely not. You know, I think one of the most evident examples of that, I've seen someone take a $20 bill and say, do you want this? Oh, yeah. And then they crumple it up. Now do you want it? Well, yeah. Drop it on the floor, they spit on it, they jump on it. Now do you want it? And the person says, yeah, it's $20. Well, why do you want it? It's a piece of junk. Look, it looks like a piece of litter. No, no, no. Open it up. Unravel it. It still has its inherent dignity. Likewise, if that's what we feel like, crumpled up, discarded, used, we've just been through terrible things in our life, look, everyone has things in their past they wish they could erase. We all can start over. And so you don't lose your dignity because you've made a mistake. Anybody can get up and practice the virtue of chastity. That's one of the key things. Chastity doesn't mean virginity. Chastity doesn't just mean abstinent. There's plenty of people who aren't virgins who became saints. St. Augustine fathered a child out of marriage. St. Pelagia was a prostitute. St. Margaret of Cortona shacked up with her boyfriend. Were they chaste at that point in their lives? No. But they converted and they became saints. And so it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. All that matters is where we go from here.